Welcome to Veteran Resource Podcast, where you will meet nonprofit organizations focused on improving the lives of veterans and their family members. Here is your host, Jeremy Paris.
Welcome, everybody, to episode 104 of the Veteran Resource Podcast. I'm your host, Jeremy Paris, and boy, do I got a good episode for you today. I'm going to be talking with Mark Rockefeller of StreetShares about investing in veteran-owned businesses. If you are a veteran who is thinking about starting up their own business, you're interested in entrepreneurship, then you are going to absolutely love what Mark has to say in this episode. If you're not interested in starting a business, but you are interested in helping veterans who are starting businesses and at the same time getting a good return on your investment, you're also going to want to listen to this episode. I absolutely love what Mark is doing with StreetShares and with the foundation, which you'll hear about in the interview. Mark Rockefeller is the co-founder and CEO of StreetShares, a startup that uses technology and social loyalty to improve financial services for the military and veterans community. He is also a contributor to Forbes, writing on fintech and veterans entrepreneurship. Following military service in Iraq, Mark joined the law firm Milbank, Tweed, Hadley, and McCloy. He left the firm in 2013 to co-found StreetShares, which launched in 2014. StreetShares has raised over $200 million in debt and $9 million in equity investment and won the overall Global Best Investment Award from the Harvard Business School New Venture Competition. The head of the National Military Banking Association calls StreetShares the most interesting thing to happen to the military finance space in decades. Mark has been listed in Inc. magazine's top 20 military veteran tech entrepreneurs as a trending 40 under 40 entrepreneur, the Mighty25 Veterans to watch in 2017, and has been quoted or featured in the Wall Street Journal, Forbes, Bloomberg Businessweek, Huffington Post, American Banker, Washington Business Journal, Inc. magazine, and Entrepreneur magazine. He holds a bachelor's degree in finance, MBA, and law degrees. He was a Stone Scholar at Columbia Law School and is a term member in the Council on Foreign Relations. All right, let's jump right into the interview. Mark, welcome to the Veteran Resource Podcast. How are you doing today?
I am well. Thanks so much for having me. I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah, I've been wanting to have you on for quite some time once I found out about what it was that you guys are doing with StreetShares. And so I'm anxious to get into it and let the listeners know all about what it is you have going on.
Awesome. Yeah, we're excited. Thanks so much for having us.
So let's start off with just a brief description. What is StreetShares?
Yeah, StreetShares is the social lending community for the military and veterans world. So what that means is we are doing small business loans to veteran-owned businesses. And those loans are backed by investments from our fellow veterans and folks in the military community. And by sort of capturing the loyalty, the duty that exists between military veterans, we can actually de-risk these loans. And so what that means is that I can make loans to veteran-owned businesses and charge lower rates, and then I can give better returns to investors. So everybody wins by lending within this community of trust that we already have.
Very cool. And I can't wait to dive into that. But before we do that, let's get a little background on you. So what can you tell me about yourself?
Yeah, born and raised in Colorado, was in the Air Force for 9 years between 2001 and 2010, left the military, was a lawyer at a Wall Street law firm for a couple of years, primarily worked on Lehman Brothers and a few other issues, and then saw this opportunity to leave the law firm and create a company. And so I met up with my co-founder, a gentleman named Mickey Conson, very talented banking executive. And he and I met in 2013 and decided to leave the law firm for me, leave the bank for him, and give it a try here, starting our own company. And so we launched StreetShares in July 2014.
Very cool. So StreetShares, when you first had the idea, this was specifically helping out the veteran community? Like, what was the initial idea for StreetShares?
Yeah, the initial idea was that if you could do lending from within a community that already had bonds of trust, that you should be able to de-risk those loans. right? If we take a loan from a bank, yes, there's a duty to pay it back. There's a contract to pay it back. There's consequences if we don't. But we felt like we could enhance that duty. If I took a loan and I knew that on the other end of that loan were my fellow veterans investing their retirement in me, we felt like we could change borrower behavior, that we could actually tap into and sort of capture that trust between veterans and use it to improve financial services. My co-founder Mickey and I both had this same idea. We looked at different communities where we might be able to apply this. He's a military veteran, I'm a veteran. We are right here in Washington, D.C. There's a massive need for funding of veteran-owned companies, and so it seemed like a fairly obvious place to start.
Are you connected? You said you're right here in DC. Are you connected with the Bunker Labs?
We are, yeah. No, they're a partner of ours. I'm a big fan. Todd Connor and Emily and the whole Bunker team. They and StreetShares and a few other great organizations are a part of this veterans entrepreneurship movement that is just exploding in America. It's very, very exciting to see military veterans return from service and start their own businesses. And there's lots of reasons why folks do that. We can talk about those. But there is most definitely a very clear trend, a very clear just movement toward veterans entrepreneurship in America. And Bunker and StreetShares are a big part of that.
Very cool. Let's kind of dig into this a little bit. For a veteran who owns a business, how does StreetShares help them out?
Yeah, we have three kinds of products that will help a veteran business owner like that. So we have a term loan for their business. We have a line of credit for their business called the Patriot Express line of credit. And then thirdly, if they are in government contracting and procurement, which a lot of veteran-owned businesses are because there's preferences and set-asides for veteran-owned companies in that space, then we have some unique products specifically for the veteran government contractor.
Oh, wow. Where were you back in 2003 or 4 or 5 when I had my own contractor company, and we were using a number of different companies to fund our payroll.
Yeah, but it's a real problem in the GovCon space because you have veteran-owned companies that get a contract, and that's awesome, but they have to mobilize to perform on that contract, right? So if I've just set up my business and I win a contract, typically there's an outlay of capital that's required for me to get up and running, right? I've got to hire a team, I've got to buy some equipment, whatever it is, to perform on that contract. There are very, very few funding sources out there that will help you do that. We have a product that is specifically tailored toward that problem, something we call a mobilization loan. So that's an absolute need that we try and fit. The other need is you perform on a contract, but the government doesn't pay you for 45 days, 60 days, 90 days. And so as you say, there's this sort of gap between your performance to the government and them paying you on that contract. And of course, in the meantime, you've got to make payroll and cover your expenses. And we have other products that are tailored to that.
That's pretty awesome. Might have to use that in the future.
Yes. Yeah, but any one of your listeners can learn more about these products at StreetShares.com. We have 3 different kinds of products for those government contractors, and then the term loans and the lines of credit. The entire process starts at StreetShares.com for those who are interested.
Can we do a walkthrough? Let's say that I'm not doing government contracting. I'm just starting my own business, and I need some startup money. I need some capital. What does the process look like to get a loan through StreetShares? Yeah,
the best way to think of this is sort of the Uberization of banking, right? So if we think about what Uber has done by making things very simple, very, very mobile, Airbnb is the same way. We have done that in essence to the military credit union. So to apply for a loan, you start on your phone. The initial application, it takes about 5 or 7 minutes. You are pre-approved at that point, and then we'll reach out. There's some additional documentation depending on the kind of loan that's best for your situation. But the entire thing starts on your phone. On the other side of this equation, you have investors, your fellow veterans, members of the military community, spouses, families, etc., that are investing in these same loans also on their phone. So very similar to what, say, Uber has done to taxi cabs, where you remove this intermediary and allow the parties to connect directly over the phone. We do something very similar in the lending world, but it's all built around the military veterans community.
Well, that's very cool. Very cool. So the funds are coming from other veterans. They're coming from military supported families. Can anybody invest, or is this just strictly for veterans and military families that can invest?
Yeah, the focus is certainly on the military and veterans community, but we define that fairly broadly. So if you log in as an investor or a lender, we call them, you will choose your status, active duty, retired, family member, or you can check off a supporter, and then which branch you're affiliated with. So that supporter tab on that drop-down menu does allow people who have not served themselves but want to support veterans to be a part of our community as well. We have found that the veteran community really is sort of aspirational for a lot of people, right? There's a lot of great people out there who they themselves didn't serve, maybe they didn't have the opportunity, maybe medically they couldn't, whatever the situation is, but they admire and respect the veterans community. We didn't want to exclude them, and so we do allow supporters of the community to participate as well.
Oh, that's very cool. Very cool. I was playing around on the site, going through a couple of the things. There's a couple different directions you can go when you're investing, depending on whether or not you're an accredited investor or not. For the listeners, can you kind of go over what the difference is there?
Yes, that's a very important distinction. A lot of people actually aren't aware of this, but the Securities Exchange Commission divides the entire investing world up into two categories. Either you're accredited or non-accredited. To be accredited, there's a definition on the SEC website that I refer you to, but the bottom line is you're sort of a wealthier person, usually about $1 million net worth, $200,000 in income, that kind of thing. For those folks, they're allowed to invest in the loans directly. So that is, they can go in and they can pick individual loans in which they want to invest. But you've got to certify that you're accredited, and there's a bit more work to be done on that end. For the majority of folks, they are not accredited, and so what they do is they actually log in and they buy something called a veteran business bond, which is a product that we've created uniquely. We're quite proud of it. That is basically a pooled account, and there's a 5% return on this bond. The money is liquid, so you can access it and pull it out whenever you'd like. So long as it's in with us, you get 5%. If you pull it out, there's a 1% penalty. And so long as that's with us, we then take that capital and lend it out to veteran-owned companies. So it's a pretty unique opportunity for all of your listeners to participate in sort of funding veteran-owned companies, supporting veterans entrepreneurship, while still getting a pretty good yield. We have a file with the SEC that explains all the risks and everything around this investment, which I would refer your listeners to. If they log into StreetShares.com, it's available for them there as well.
Well, very cool. So you don't have to be an accredited investor in order to invest in these companies. You could be just anybody who believes in veteran-owned businesses, and you're going to be able to get a 5% return on your investment through this bond. Am I capturing that correctly?
That's exactly right. Yeah. So for your listeners, I think the only sort of security that I'm allowed to sort of talk about and advertise, of course, is the veteran business bond side of it. So that's a 5% return product. It is liquid, so folks can access their capital. They can pull it back out if they'd like. And while it is with us, we will use that capital to back veteran-owned companies. So it's a great opportunity to do good and do well, support veterans entrepreneurship, get a 5% yield. There's not many opportunities, I think, in the in the investment world that allow you to have that kind of impact and also get some pretty solid returns.
Absolutely. And when it comes to veteran businesses, I mean, like you said, they are growing right now, the amount, and it probably has something to do with the 20,000 veterans that are getting out of the military every month. But I think that I have my own opinions on this. Why do you feel that investing in veteran businesses is a good idea?
I think veterans make outstanding entrepreneurs, period.
Absolutely.
I think there's a legacy and a history of veterans entrepreneurship in America. Our grandparents' generation after World War II, part of what made them the greatest generation wasn't just what they did on foreign battlefields, but what they did after they got back. And they started businesses in droves. The sort of golden economic years that we had after World War II were largely driven by veteran entrepreneurs. One study out of Syracuse found that 49% of them went on to own or operate a business at some point in their lives. That's a huge number, right? Almost half. It's extraordinary. Our generation of veterans want to do the same thing, but most of us separated from the service in the wake of the financial crisis. right? I came back from Iraq in the spring of 2008. Lehman Brothers would crash a few months later. The whole thing was just kicking off, right? Many of us separated around that time frame. We also want to start businesses, but the capital to do so wasn't there for us like it was for our grandparents. And so that's why we built StreetShares. So I just believe that veterans make great entrepreneurs. I think the same sort of tenacity and discipline and focus that you learn in the military, many of those things that we experience in the military have parallels in the business world. And so veterans just succeed more as business owners, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. I see that too. A lot of the skills that you learn no matter what job you're doing in the military, the other skills, the soft skills, they transfer over and make for great business owners, especially the attention to detail.
Exactly. Yeah. It's the ability to, set a goal, build a plan toward that goal, stay focused. Many of the principles that we learn in the military about sort of studying the enemy and understanding maneuvers and tactics, all those things have parallels in the business world, right? What is the marketplace? What are competitors doing? What is working on a strategic level or a tactical level? All of these things have carryover. And I think most importantly, fundamentally, it just comes down to grit. There's a perseverance that it takes to succeed in business that just comes down to grit. And I think that's what a lot of veterans bring to the table.
For the veteran that has a business idea and they're looking at, getting things going, I imagine that somebody can't just come to you with an idea and say, I'd like a loan. Here's what I'm thinking. We're going to do something like this. Like, there's certain things that they have to bring to the table in order to get that loan. Is that correct?
Yes. Very importantly, we do not lend to brand new startups. If you are a brand new startup with just an idea and no revenues and no sales yet, your best option is going to be some bootstrapping, maybe a grant, that we do have a grant opportunity that I can tell you about here in a minute, or equity investors, right? So it's incredibly risky at that stage, and we have our veteran community investors to look out for as well. And so our minimum is that you've got $25,000 in revenue, and you've been in business for at least a year. So those are fairly low bars to clear. For example, if you want a bank loan, typically they're going to want to see 2 or 3 years in business and a couple $100,000 in revenue. So we're much, much more flexible than a bank would be. But we do have to look out for our investors' interests as well. And so those are the minimums to qualify for a loan on StreetShares.
Excellent. And I imagine that would be a good opportunity for them to connect with some of the other organizations out there like Bunker Labs to get things going in the right direction before they're ready.
Yes. There are some great training organizations out there. Bunker Labs is one of them. IVMF out of Syracuse, that's the Institute for Veterans and Military Families. They have a boot camp program called EBV, Entrepreneurship Boot Camp for Veterans, that is extraordinarily good. They have trained tens of thousands of veteran entrepreneurs. Patriot Boot Camp, run by Charlotte Creech. They're focused on training veteran entrepreneurs in the tech sector. You have Vet to CEO, very good program. It's almost like an online mini MBA for veterans. All of these resources are free, absolutely free.
Wow.
And they're just wonderful supports for the aspiring veteran entrepreneur.
I think I just have 3 more people that I need to have on the podcast.
Absolutely. No, and they're great people. They're great people. There is just this really interesting community of veteran entrepreneurs growing up right now, and this sort of network that supports us, right? We actually have our own incubators, our own accelerators, our own angel investor communities, our own VC communities, and we all know each other. We all refer folks to each other for maximum impact. It's a really, really exciting time, actually, to be a veteran entrepreneur in America. There's some of the resources from the SBA and the VA. And then what I was going to mention is the StreetShares Foundation. So once you've been trained up, you've got that idea, you've got a good business plan, nearly everyone needs a little bit of cash to get going, right? Raising your first, $2,000, $5,000, $10,000 is always the most difficult. We have actually set up a foundation here at StreetShares called the StreetShares Foundation, which you can go to streetshares.com/foundation. And we give $10,000 in veteran business grants each month to veteran entrepreneurs. So that is grant money with no strings attached, does not have to be paid back, there's no interest on it whatsoever. And we have educational resources, and so folks visit the site, They get educated, they get training, they get referrals, and then they can apply for this grant program. We pick 8 to 10 finalists each month. And then the fun part is that then is opened up to a public vote. And the finalists submit videos, and the public then votes for their favorite. And the top 3 win prizes of $5,000, $3,000, and $2,000. And so we're giving away $10,000 each and every month. That is designed to help those aspiring or those early stage veteran entrepreneurs get that first bit of seed funding that they need to get things launched. And we have just had an extraordinary response to this grant program. And we've seen so many great entrepreneurs come through that program as well.
Oh, that is very cool. Very cool. And anybody that's thinking about getting into business, you should definitely go and check this out. If for nothing else, for the education materials that you have for getting your business going.
Yeah, we have articles and ebooks and training videos, all kinds of great things on the site. You engage with those, and then you can qualify to then apply for the grant, and then you apply. And again, that's $10,000 each and every month that we're doing at StreetShares.com/foundation.
Very cool. And I'll make sure that I put the links for the website and for the foundation in the show notes to make it really easy for everybody to get to and get connected with Mark and StreetShares. Mark, one of the things that I was curious about was if you're able to talk about any success stories of businesses who have come through.
Yeah, boy, we've had some great ones. One of the ones that we tell a lot is Matthew Griffin over at Combat Flip Flops. Many of you guys probably know him. Makes some very, very cool products. His tagline is "They make cool things in dangerous places." So Matt makes flip flops and sarongs and jewelry and all kinds of stuff, but he does it in Cambodia and Colombia and Afghanistan. And he came to us early on for a loan for inventory, and the banks wouldn't lend to him, obviously, right, because of sort of insurance issues associated with where he was manufacturing. And the great story behind this company is Matt was an Army Ranger. He and a fellow Ranger saw this factory when they were in Afghanistan, and the conflict had displaced the workers in this factory. So these folks were out of a job. So after they left the military, they then went back and repurposed this factory for his own company to make flip-flops for Americans. And these are very nice leather, high-quality flip-flops. And so needed a loan. The banks wouldn't lend to him because of the insurance issues associated with manufacturing in Afghanistan. But our investors here at StreetShares did. So we gave them a loan, and then they got their first big break. And that was an article in Gizmodo, I think it was, that just kind of went viral and got a couple 100,000 views. And he got a bunch of orders for his flip-flops, and things just really took off. He called me the next week and he said, "Mark, thank you to you and your investors, because there's no way that we could have met these orders without this," right? Fast forward probably six or 8 months from then, Matt and his co-founder are on Shark Tank getting a deal from Mark Cuban.
Huh.
So a very, very cool example of a veteran entrepreneur, Matt and his co-founder, for whom the existing system wasn't working, right? If he had to rely on the banks, Combat Flip Flops would never get off the ground. But he turned to a fellow veteran entrepreneur, StreetShares, and our network of veteran investors who believed in Matt, believed in the idea, gave him a loan, and then he got the break that he needed, and then all he needed from there was just a chance, right? And then he and his co-founder took it from there. They're running a great company. Matt will occasionally come back and visit us here at the company, and just a great example of kind of veterans, turning to each other to get the job done, just like we did overseas.
Wow, that's awesome. And you look at something like that, I mean, that is helping out the company, obviously, but it's helping out the local economy in Afghanistan.
Yep.
In these other places where they're working. This is helping out the investors who invested in the company, because obviously they made back their money and then some.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it's helping the veteran community. It's helping the people that are getting these products. It's helping everybody just from this starting loan.
Yeah, let's not forget the impact on the veterans community, right? There's so much hand-wringing now about what we do to help veterans. There's some like 40,000, I think, nonprofits set up to help veterans.
Right.
The most important thing that you can do is give a veteran the chance to take the skills and resources and talent that they already have and apply that to a new endeavor. It is my firm belief that veterans entrepreneurship is incredibly good for the veterans community because it gives us something new to focus on.
Yes.
Many of the issues that kind of plague the community, I think can be solved through entrepreneurship, right? We're turning to each other, we're helping each other, we are hiring each other. I am hiring veterans left and right here at StreetShares because they're talented and they're awesome, and I love to work with my fellow veterans, right? There is a battle, I think, for how our generation of veterans, the Iraq, Afghanistan, post 9/11 generation, are going to be characterized, right? You have some who I think want to characterize this generation as victims and people who need, assistance and help, and without that have nothing. Now, there are legitimate needs and entitlements that veterans have earned. Those things should be paid out absolutely 100%, full stop, period. But we also need to kind of take care of ourselves a little bit, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm on the side that says, no, this generation, we're not victims. We're not needy. This is the most sort of talented generation of veterans that our country has ever seen. We've been at war now for 15 years straight, right? Plus. Mm-hmm. We've served in some very ambiguous situations. We're culturally astute. We're used to technology. We're more diverse, gender diversity, racial diversity, than any generation of veterans previously. This is a talented group that should be harnessed and have an opportunity to serve their country once again through creating businesses. So it's something that I'm very passionate about, and I do believe there's a bit of a battleground to how this generation of vets will be characterized. And I stand firmly on the side that says this generation are innovators and entrepreneurs, and they should be cut loose to create businesses, do great things, and hire each other. That's the solution for a lot of the problems that are plaguing the veterans community.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was talking with Scott Mann of Mission America on another interview, and he was talking about the biggest problem of transitioning veterans is they're losing this sense of self, this sense of purpose. Yeah. They knew themselves for the last 10 or 20 years as, a tanker or infantryman or whatever it was. Then they get out and they have to then redefine what it is, what it is I'm doing. Who am I? What is my mission, my goal in life? And you're absolutely right. Having a business that you are trying to grow and trying to get up off the ground, that's something that you wake up every day and you're passionate about. That's your new baby. That's your new thing that drives you. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, there's so many parallels as well. When you're in the military, you have a mission, you have a team, you have resources, there's risk, and you have to get the job done. That's exactly what it is in business, right? So those skills just transfer over very nicely, and they give the veteran that new mission, that new purpose, that new team, those new resources, that new end state that you're working toward. It just carries over so nicely, and I think that's in part why veterans make such great entrepreneurs.
Mark, before we sign off, is there any last nugget of financial advice that you can give to veterans that are thinking of starting a business?
Yeah, I guess I would say to turn to the veterans community. There's lots of folks out there who are entrepreneurs that have ideas. Very few of them, frankly, have the resources and opportunities that veteran entrepreneurs have. I gave a speech last week in Silicon Valley, and it was about how the military community is the most powerful business network on earth. And if you think about it, this really is the case, right? And number of veteran entrepreneurs, right? There's 2.5 million veteran-owned small businesses right now. Impact in terms of total revenues over $1 trillion. The number of people that we hire, the industries that we're in, kind of the breadth and depth of our reach. The veteran community is a powerful, powerful community. And so, if you don't have a fancy MBA or alumni association, don't worry about it, right? You've got the veterans community. If you don't, you're not a member of some elite business club, don't worry about it. You've got the veterans community. I think too few veterans are actually turning to the community, to the resources that are here, like the Bunker and StreetShares and Patriot Boot Camp and others, to sort of get their start, get their launch. There's extraordinary resources out there for the veteran entrepreneur if we'll just turn to each other. So I would encourage anyone listening who is interested in entrepreneurship to turn first to the resources within the veterans community. It's an extraordinary advantage. So, the veterans community is the most powerful business network on earth, and we should act like it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mark, so much for coming on the show and telling us all about StreetShares and everything that you have going on. I will, like I said, definitely put all of the information in the show notes. Everybody that's listening to this, make sure you go and check out what it is they have going on and also check out the foundation. This can definitely get you on the right path.
All right. Thanks so much. You can find everything at StreetShares.com. So thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for listening to episode 104 of the Veteran Resource Podcast. As always, make sure you go and check out the show notes. You can find those at veteranresourcepodcast.com/104. You're going to find all the information about Mark. You're going to be able to get connected to StreetShares. You'll be able to check out the foundation. So once again, veteranresourcepodcast.com/104. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you next week for episode 105.